All right, we're live. Welcome in. I am the real underscore G Warner on Twitter. Um, I am live from the bad beat capital of the world where I just can't seem to get through a stoppage time. Evan Ndika with an incredible header right at last kick of the match for Eintracht Frankfurt's first home win of the entire season. And we're in match day 15 or whatever. Crystal Palace with a ridiculous handball in the 93rd minute or something like that. Soccer is a brutal sport to bet. But we're here. We're going to keep going. We're going to try to win some money. We've been having a pretty good season, I think, so far, besides those late losers. And I guess I got to call out Neil Maupay with a great goal towards the end of the match when Brighton were down to 10 men due to injury. I don't know. This sport is brutal, and you just can't. I mean, in any sport, Utah State last night with absolutely ridiculous foul call at the end at home was another, made me tweet about La Liga refs on an off night, which is, let's just say I wasn't in the best mental state at that point. But now that I've done a minute and a half intro, let's get into the games. I have looked at some lines, so that's a little bit of a surprise, but trying to get ready for this week to make sure I deliver more winners to you, you loyal listener, you. I'm going to start in England, and we're going to start with West Ham hosting Chelsea. Pretty big match to start the weekend. We're in a nice fixture congestion list, and of course the alarm's going off, so I got to shut that off mid-podcast. I'm sure that's really pro move. Probably just broke the machine, but whatever. We're live. So now we're back at it. So West Ham getting half of a goal at home from Chelsea, all the juice on the Chelsea side. I got to say, West Ham, their offense is still a problem, despite where they sit in the table, fighting for Champions League. I'm not sure how they can do it, really, unless the rest of the league is just underperforming, which is happening, I believe. Chelsea's offense hasn't looked that great. Conceding a goal to Watford is pretty disappointing. Barely hanging on for a victory, also disappointing. But when you're looking at trying to go against Chelsea, I just feel like you need a full goal to really do it, unless you believe – I believe in the West Ham defense, but I don't believe in their offense, so I don't think that's enough for me. And I'm trying to limit plays to limit the bad beats because it's hard to take so many of them over and over and over again. Wolves, speaking of the devil, then hosting Liverpool, getting a goal and a quarter at home. It's really hard to want to go against Liverpool. And I guess we were talking about Watford, not Wolves, so it's early here in beautiful Dallas, Texas. So the Wolves defense has been their calling card. Offense has been a struggle for them. I mean, even Adama Traore 2-on-1 hits the crossbar with like his best, closest shot all season. Maybe that was good fortune in a 0-0 in the midweek, but that's, I think, their offense in a nutshell. It really struggles. Liverpool can name their score, and I don't know that I trust the Wolves defense to be that good to sustain that much pressure for 90 plus minutes, and then the stoppage time goals that certainly will come through, especially after that first one goes in. So I'm not so interested in betting on Wolves to hang around and gasp for a single goal loss to only win half a unit. Next is Southampton hosting Brighton. Southampton, a quarter goal favorite, went ahead against Leicester twice in the midweek and couldn't hold on to either. And then we're really fortunate, I think, to even get a draw. I'm not a believer in the Southampton offense. I think their defense is problematic. And the thing with Brighton, though, is that they can't score. They have a ton of the ball. They play pretty football. Graham Potter is supposedly a genius, and maybe he would be with better players at his disposal. But Brighton have real trouble scoring and finding the back of the net, despite creating like really big chances every time they play. The yawns are back. You're welcome. And so I think from where I sit, Brighton getting a quarter, all the juice is on the Brighton side as it should be. And maybe this close pick 'em so that I can not waste money on this one. But I got to say, as a quarter goal underdog, I think a draw is very likely here. I don't think is a huge rivalry, but maybe has become one because Southampton and Brighton are so closely located, and kind of has to be because the other teams have been relegated from that area. I just don't believe in the Southampton offense, even if they did get some goals against a really leaky Leicester back line. Newcastle then hosts Burnley, giving a quarter of a goal. And I mean, Newcastle keeps being a favorite. Their fixture list is getting better or has been very good, and they can't get wins. And I'm just in a position where I think that they're one of the worst teams in the league. I think their strategies to play front foot offensive football, and that doesn't really work for their defense. And Eddie Howe, I don't know, that was a really great hire, though it seemed like he was brought in to win football games, and they have been able to do it. Burnley with a tough match midweek, and certainly have a lower budget because I think they were lowest in the Premier League entering the season, according to Transfer Market. But ultimately, I think, or at least player values, I think Burnley do enough, have been playing pretty well and getting results. Newcastle haven't been unable to do that. Maybe they win here, but I think it's worth. I think Burnley are just as likely to win as Newcastle is, and they're catching a quarter, despite it being a road game. Watford then hosting Man City, getting 2 goals. Man City are not going to give Watford many chances. Watford are going to probably sit back, play Ranieri football, and try to spring counterattacks. I don't know the status of Sarr, but I feel like he is probably at best a substitute in this matchup. And ultimately, Man City can probably name their score. So only getting, 2 is a huge number, but I don't think that's enough for me. Manchester United then hosting Crystal Palace, giving a full goal. United with the new manager, sporting director Ragnick coming in. Their offense looked pretty good. Their lineup in that case against Arsenal, but there's plenty of problems in that defense. I think Crystal Palace, as I already alluded to, the ridiculous handball was a handball, sure, but just brutal timing to give it up. And especially after missing some sitters, Benteke with one of the easiest headers, and that's what he does, and missed the goal, missed the net entirely, missed the target. And then I'll stop complaining now. But I think I like what I've seen from Crystal Palace offensively. I think they've had a lot more of a spark this season. I think their defense is still a question for me. And that's a really tough situation against Manchester United, who have plenty of attacking talent and can score goals. I think United want to sit back and counter. That's their bread and butter and has been for seasons now. Will Crystal Palace sit back and really sit in? I'm not sure that that's Patrick Vieira's style. And that does seem to be a problem to me. I think I want to look at lineups to see how everyone goes, or who's going out there, especially on a quick turnaround. But that should also favor Manchester United. So Palace only getting a goal right now seems a little cheap from my perspective at the moment. Next on the list, Tottenham hosting Norwich, giving a goal and a quarter. I haven't been in love or impressed by Tottenham all season. But Norwich Norwich is on a good run, to give them credit. Dean Smith came in, inherited a team that already won their last match. I think their first match of the year before Farka got sacked, which was surprising. But, when great coaches, managers like Dean Smith become available, you got to grab them while they're hot. And I got to say, Norwich getting a goal and a quarter does interest me a little bit based on that huge points goal spread. But I'm going to try my best to avoid it, because I think this is a situation where Norwich, they struggle so much to score that whenever Tottenham gets their first goal, yawn's killing me. Whenever Tottenham gets that first goal, I think it's a big, big question mark on if Norwich can win the race to equalize. And I think it's going to be really tough for them to do that, especially if they have to push forward and kind of leave their defense behind. Leeds then host Brentford, giving half of a goal. And I don't know where the Leeds offense can sustain giving up this type of number. Certainly the late penalties will come, as I've seen all season. I just don't know that Leeds really have enough scoring talent. Playing Roberts up top as their striker was kind of hilarious in the last match. And I guess Brentford in their situation have been dealing with a lot of injuries. Their attackers are pretty much intact, at least going into the last match with Mbomo and Tony. They haven't really been producing as much, and I think playing against better competition as often as they have has been detrimental to their performance from a really hot start to the season. But I think the biggest issue has been their defense, based on health problems that has put them in tough positions. And then I think Leeds, though, are not a team that can really exploit a injured or banged up Brentford defense, because I don't think they have enough of an offense. So getting a half of a goal is attractive to me. I think this should be a quarter, probably realistically with lines and point spreads, goal spreads. It probably shouldn't be, but still, I'm interested. Villa then hosting Leicester, getting a quarter of a goal at home. The Villa offense has been pretty quiet. I think they've gotten some really fortunate results under Steven Gerrard, and Leicester's defense has been problematic, but I'm not sure that Villa really have enough to trouble them. Leicester, I think, can score goals. And I think in terms of how this match will play out, I think the jury is still out on exactly how Gerrard wants to play, especially against even sides, but like got controlled at home against Brighton for 89 minutes or so whenever their late goal to win the match went in on a counterattack. And I feel like they're going to give Leicester a lot of the ball, and it's rough to be a favorite with a kind of meddling, quiet offense when you're giving a quarter of a goal. And you're not really going to win possession handily. And then moving to Monday Night Football, we have Everton hosting Arsenal. Everton getting a quarter of a goal at home. Everton are a disaster. I don't even know that any midweek type of changes will really change my opinion on that. But defense is a problem. Ancelotti showed last season just playing as many center backs as he could at a time. That was the way to try to shore up the defense. I think Rafa Benitez has been sitting back thinking that his strategy would be enough, and it hasn't been. And their offense hasn't really been doing much for seasons. So it's going to be really hard for me to want to play them, though I'm not really in love with what Arsenal is putting out there at the moment. Next on the list, we're going to move to, while the computer loads and I yawn, we're going to move to Granada hosting Alaves La Liga. So Granada as a favorite are an interesting spot for me to go against. Alaves with a deserved a lot better in their last match in the snow. Ridiculous handball when they're controlling the game. Handed away a victory to Celta de Vigo on a silver platter, only for a penalty attempt to be saved. But the rebound was scored by Iago Aspas. I think Alaves have been playing so much better than they did to start the season. That looked like a relegation candidate for sure. They've moved further and further away from relegation. Granada are in that battle, have just a few seasons ago were in Europa League, but basically that entire squad is gone. They've patched up those holes with a lot of elder statement up front that I think are going to have trouble scoring goals. And others have shown that they're really strong at set pieces. Plus, Jose Lu, I think, is the best attacker on the pitch in this matchup. So I'm very interested in a Friday matchup of Alaves getting a quarter at Granada. Moving to Saturday, Sevilla hosting Villarreal, giving half of a goal. It's a little bit of a short price. Sevilla got so screwed by the refs at Real Madrid, which La Liga still seems to be favoring Real Madrid and Barcelona with some of the calls that they make are incredible. The penalties they give and the penalties they don't give, they give for the big clubs and don't give for the smaller clubs, I guess is the better way to put it, is incredible to me. And it's so obvious, but I also was betting against those two sides of smaller ones and just not giving a clear foul kick out on Alaba, just kicking Lucas Ocampos, which is ridiculous. And I guess I've been watching too much soccer because I'm starting to get upset even the next morning or a week later, basically, of the match happening. But regardless, Villarreal, their offense, I don't think is good enough. It's really tough to trust them to score at all. And I think Sevilla are going to control possession and are much more likely to score. And I don't know the last time that Sevilla was shut out. So I'm not sure that half is enough for me, especially with all the juice in the Villarreal side. Barcelona, speaking of the devil, hosting Betis, giving a goal and a quarter, which is way more than I expected. Betis have been up and down and certainly have some bad performances to speak of. But Barcelona's offense has been non-existent. Betis has been able to score. Juanmi has been an incredible goal-scoring threat for them. I imagine he's got to play this match. Certainly with Copa del Rey midweek, that could have distracted some things, but I think Betis getting more than a goal is way too high, and that'll likely be on my card. Atletico Madrid then hosting Mallorca. Still have questions about that Atleti offense. Mallorca have shown to be a really tough, staunch defense, and I think they're going to try to make Atleti try to score as much as they can, which Atleti show that they can do that at times, but I still think that is a less likely scenario for Atleti to score a bunch of goals, and they need at least 2 to beat me. Mallorca currently at getting a goal and a half with all the juice, so maybe that falls to a goal and a quarter, but that's still enough for a single goal loss to pay me half of my stake. So 50-50 very interested in Mallorca. Real Sociedad then hosting Real Madrid, only getting a quarter at home. Thought this would be bigger. I think the Real Madrid offense has been better than it should be and has been scoring more goals than it deserves. But they had to play midweek against Athletic Club. That's going to zap the legs quite a bit. Real Sociedad with a much different as a big favorite in Copa del Rey. So I imagine the legs will be a little bit better. The crowd should be nuts at Real Sociedad. The match I went to earlier this season against Mallorca was so packed and was so loud with the whistles against the official that I feel like I was deaf for a whole day while I was in Spain. But ultimately, I'm looking at the home dog. I just don't know that a quarter is enough for me at the moment. Rayo Vallecano then hosting Espanyol, giving a quarter of a goal with almost all the juice on the Rayo side. Seems a little short to me. I expect this to be higher, more like a half, because Rayo have been so good at home this season. Espanyol's defense has been decent. I think they're great on set pieces and bundling goals in off of the crossbar on a corner kick or whatever. I am interested in the underdog here, especially if Espanyol climb to a half. But I've honestly been taking my medicine betting against Rayo Vallecano at home. And I feel like I need to get a better understanding of exactly how they score so many goals in the counterattacks against all the La Liga comers that come to their stadium. Elche then hosting Cadiz in a battle at the bottom. Elche, a half a goal favorite, seems way higher than they should be, though Cadiz either win matches or get blown out at this point, it seems. I think Elche are going to control possession, as that's what Cadiz do. But there also is a little bit of an idea that Cadiz might be a little bit more aggressive because they probably see this as their easiest road matchup of the season. Over under at 2 shows that there are not many goals expected in this matchup when most are 2.5, I think, across the top 5 European leagues. But low scoring match with some questionable ability to put the ball in the back of the net. I mean, if there's ever a 0-0 that could pop out, it's probably this one. So getting a half of a goal on a Cadiz does seem like a significant amount of value when a draw wins you a full bet. Levante then hosting Osasuna. Levante is a quarter goal favorite with all and more some and then some juice on Osasuna. So it's likely he's pushing down towards Pick'em. Osasuna have trouble scoring, have trouble finishing chances, but they're good at limiting their opponent. Levante have real trouble keeping the ball at the back of their net. So I'm looking to back Osasuna here, and I think I might even play this early, as I expect Osasuna might even go through Pick'em and would likely be more likely to give a quarter at kickoff. I mean, maybe that's saying a lot based on where this number sits right now, but the high juice, heavy juice makes me think that this one's falling and only going one direction. Celta de Vigo then hosting Valencia, giving a quarter of a goal with all the juice on the home side. So likely or the most likely move is to a half of a goal. The Celta de Vigo offense has not really done anything all season. They've been fortunate to get penalties or come back from a 3-0 deficit in the second half to draw Barcelona, which I think is a commentary on their defense. They gave up 3 goals to a Barcelona side and a half. Valencia have certainly not looked very good. Their defense has been struggling. Offense hasn't really been doing enough. But I think this is a spot where if they climb to a half of a goal, where they're worth a bet, because I think Celta de Vigo, even at home, I don't really have a lot of faith in them scoring goals. And I think their defense is problematic as well. Moving to Monday, Getafe hosting Athletic Club. Getafe getting a quarter of a goal at home, which is saying something for an Athletic Club team that have really struggled against the poor sides in La Liga. I think they're a good underdog play, but ultimately I think Getafe have been able to score goals under a new manager kind of inexplicably. And I think that they're going to really make it tough. They're going to play their physical brand of football and make it really tough on Athletic Club, who are not in a normal situation where they want to sit back and counter. They're going to probably have a lot of possession of the ball. And that just is a different type of style for Athletic Club, who haven't really proved that they can kind of win in that way. So the home dog getting a quarter does seem interesting. Though I'm still not in love with Getafe. I think they're past their goal scoring issues. AC Milan then hosting Salernitana in Serie A, Italian's top league. We have Milan giving a goal in 3/4 with all the juice on their side, so that's likely climbing to 2 goals. I would think that there's not a lot in the way from Salernitana money back, stopping that. That probably will be a spot where people who want to back Salernitana will buy back. The Milan offense is good. I think their defense is porous, but I'm not sure that Salernitana are a team that can really mess with them too much. So it's a lot about Salernitana's defense, which I think also has problems. I'm not sure I want to get in the way of that. Roma getting half of a goal at home from Inter. All the juice on Roma. So maybe this falls down to a quarter, but I feel like it probably sticks here. Roma's dealing with a bunch of injuries right now. Inter Milan are kind of injury proof, at least to a certain extent, because they're so deep in their roster and their on their team. Their backups are really good, and I feel like that also helps them in a congested fixture list when everyone played midweek. I think Roma as a home dog will always be interesting to me in this matchup, but there is a bit of a gap in quality and certainly the rest stuff with a limited roster that Mourinho is probably going to have to throw out whatever he can. That's a problem against a really good side at the top of the league like Inter. Napoli then hosting Atalanta, and there's been a ton of respect for Atalanta, more than I expected already, and it's even coming in even more with Napoli down to pick 'em. All the juice in the Napoli side, so maybe this flies back between a quarter. But I was thinking that Napoli would even get more respect in the quarter to 1/2 range. Atalanta have been playing better, and they look like they're turning it up. Offense was good against maybe Venezia's side that was a little bit tired running on fumes, but they controlled that match from start to finish. And that was really impressive because Venezia had been a thorn in a lot of the bigger club sides so far. Not much for me to do here at Pick'em. We'll see where this number closes, and I imagine it does close Atalanta at a quarter. And I got to say that the sides that are a little bit underpriced or that the line seems a little bit surprisingly low to me as an underdog do fare fairly well in Serie A, whether the match fixing history is actually gone or not. I'll let you be the judge. But it does seem interesting to me that the underpriced road dogs do really well in this league is something I've noticed. Moving to Sunday, Bologna hosting Fiorentina. Pick them right now. So not much for me to do with Fiorentina with more of the juice on the road. I'm not a believer in Fiorentina. They had a good performance against Sampdoria in midweek, but I think their offense is challenged, especially when Nico Gonzalez isn't starting. Because then literally it's just like it's Vlahovic by himself or counterattacks with a lot of space. And I think Bologna, though, might be dealing with Arnautovic injury as he left early from the match in midweek, and that really sets back their offense. So that would be a big miss, and I will certainly wait for lineups to see on that one. Spezia hosting Sassuolo. Sassuolo giving half of a goal on the road with all the juice in the home underdog. Maybe this falls back to a quarter. I think Sassuolo's offense have shown that they can score. Spezia have defensive shown that they can give up and they can certainly concede. It's really going to be about how many goals can Spezia against Sassuolo defense, which is not the greatest. But I feel like Spezia are a no-touch team for me right now. Venezia hosting Verona, getting a quarter of a goal at home. Verona are a really good side that haven't really been getting great results lately. I think that sets them up to be a good value side when the schedule flips around and they start playing the good teams again. They've had an easier run and haven't really done as much with it. Venezia, though, newly promoted side who's very likely to go down, are dealing with having to play a bunch of matches in a row. Didn't really rotate midweek against Atalanta. Got sliced and diced in the center of their defense. And I don't know really what that sets up for the weekend match. Maybe they tried to play their best team against Atalanta to try to go for a point, but I think it puts them at a real rest disadvantage for a deeper Verona side that has a lot more capital. Sampdoria then hosting Lazio, only getting a quarter of a goal at home is one of the more surprising numbers to me. Lazio haven't looked great, but ultimately Sampdoria are a really old side that don't have a lot offensively, and their defense is very, very problematic at this point. Lazio have shown they can score goals, and especially against the lower sides. And I think Sampdoria are one of those in this season. Juve then hosting Genoa, giving a goal and a half at home. Genoa, they brought in Yarmolenko from Ukraine, and I feel like he's done a little bit offensively, has certainly gone with a youth movement up top. Juve, I think, is a real story here, though. Scoring goals has been a little bit better for them lately, but I think it's still a real issue and it's really hard for them to do. Also, when they go up 1-0, I think Allegri is really happy to sit back and defend. And that's not a great sign when you have to win by 2 goals to cover a spread. And especially when this one is likely climbing to goal and 3/4, where there might even be a little bit of safety and a push if Juve do win by 2 goals. If this climbs to 1 3/4, I don't know. I'm not as big of a fan of Genoa because they seem to go behind in a lot of their matches, but they fought back pretty well in some of them. And I got to say, Juve are not an offense I'm afraid of. Moving to Monday, Empoli hosting Udinese. A pick'em with most of the juice in Empoli at home is a bit of a statement that Empoli are playing really good football and that Udinese that they're not really the defense we were expecting, and their offense is pretty quiet. I think at Pick'em, there's not much for me to do, so I'll keep in this aim of time. I'll keep going. Cagliari then hosting Torino, getting a quarter of a goal at home. Torino have had a lot of possession and haven't done much with it in terms of scoring goals, and they've not gotten the results that they deserve against a lot of the big clubs, losing games 1-0 at the end. Seems like rinse, wash, repeat happens over and over again for Torino. Cagliari, their goal scoring doesn't really exist, though, and that's a big problem. At home is a nice thing with coronavirus stuff, though. I wonder if there's going to be limited crowds starting sometime soon. As we saw with Leipzig last week, there wasn't even a single fan in attendance. Germans or Germany is much more strict about those things. So we'll see about Italia, but they were ultimately late to bringing fans back compared to the rest of Europe. So we'll see. But I think Cagliari's lack of goal scoring makes a quarter too small for me to play anything further. Speaking of the Bundesliga, moving there next to Germany, we have Union Berlin hosting Leipzig today on Friday. Leipzig is a quarter goal favorite on the road, and that seems a little bit high to me, I got to say. I just, from what I've seen from Leipzig, they're good at handling poor teams like Bruges, but ultimately they're not really, their offense hasn't really kicked on. They're missing a lot of players due to coronavirus, and that's a big problem. Union didn't have to play this week, finally got some rest into them without having a Conference League match, as they're still fighting to try to advance in that division. I think it's a pretty big scenario for them, and giving up that late goal when it looked like they were destined for 1-1 and a road draw at Frankfurt, I think that sticks really hard. And I feel like Urs Fischer has been able to get into his guys about that all week. I think that they're going to be a really tough defense for Leipzig to break down. And I just don't know that the Leipzig defense, especially missing what they have been, maybe they have some coronavirus returnees, but I don't even know if you can really test positive for the virus and then come right back in and play to your capabilities. As I've had it myself, and I know what it's like. So Union, I think, as a quarter goal underdog, are very interesting, especially catching odds right now. Maybe this climbs to a half, and then it will very likely be in my card. But even at a quarter, I think that is of interest. Next is Arminia Bielefeld hosting Cologne. I imagine that Cologne will be, as I think I forgot to do lines on this one, so we're doing it live. I imagine Cologne will be a little bit of a favorite on the road. Yeah, quarter goal favorite. Bielefeld, they haven't been able to score goals. They're fighting like heck to try to get out of relegation. And Cologne coming off a really, really big victory in a derby against their biggest rivals, Gladbach. I feel like that might even put Cologne in a tough position to really bounce back, as they've been hearing how great they are, how they're no longer fighting relegation, and that they're the best thing since sliced bread in that part of Germany. And I think that in the cathedral city, I think that's not a great setup for going to then face a relegation struggler. Makes me, based on those type of emotional reasons, want to look at Armenia. Though I do have real issues to see where their goals come from. And Cologne have shown that they're going to play on the front foot and likely will dictate this match. And that's a scary thing when you're backing your relegation side or a team destined to fight for it. Moving to the next one is Augsburg hosting Bochum. I imagine Augsburg is a slight favorite at home, quarter goal favorite. Yeah. Augsburg, they've been dealing with a lot of injuries in their center backs. Had a hilarious goal given away by Robert Gumny, who's filling in at center back, usually plays as a fullback, but ended up getting a late equalizer. So that saved a lot of their bacon last weekend. I think Bochum have been playing really, really hard. Their fan support is incredible at home. So when they don't have that on the road, that's a big miss. But I also feel like in a Bundesliga type season, and as I just discussed about fans not being allowed at Leipzig last weekend, I'm very curious. I can't imagine that Augsburg will have a full crowd. And Bochum, I'm sure they'll send as many people as they can and try to make as much of an impact on the road, as they really see this as a fight to stay in the league. And I think they could do it based on how well they've defended. They've been getting maybe some results they didn't necessarily deserve, but that's credit them for that. And I think Augsburg are always a team that have a shaky defense, and their offenses does very little. So as a favorite, that's someone I want to go against. And I got to say, the momentum that Bochum have makes it very interesting. Next is Leverkusen hosting fourth, and that should be a massive spread, like 1.5 or 2 here. Leverkusen, their offense can score. Fourth are not a Bundesliga level side and have shown that they can't win. And really, it's hard to even have interest in them trying to stick around and stay close. Mainz and hosting Wolfsburg. I imagine this is a pick'em, or maybe Wolfsburg a little bit of a favorite on the road. Actually, Mainz a pick'em at home with all the juice. So if this climbs to a quarter of a goal, I think Mainz, their offense is weaker than Wolfsburg's. And I think what you get from Mainz at home is a good crowd support, but who knows with COVID restrictions what that looks like. I think it's going to be more difficult for Mainz to score than Wolfsburg on a neutral field. And I got to say, it kind of feels like more and more of one of those with the COVID restrictions. So I'm interested in Wolfsburg if it climbs to a quarter. I don't love them, and I don't love Furlan Kofeld coming in and being anointed as the savior just from the fixture list getting a little bit easier and maybe shoring up the back of a defensive side already. I do think that Mecha has been an incredible goal scoring talent because Wout Weghorst has been injured, and really when he's been playing has been fairly ineffective. But I'm a little surprised to see Mainz getting as much respect because their offense, I think, still is not the Johnny Siwo up front doesn't seem to be as potent as that nickname would suggest, coined by the teammate. Anyway, Hoffenheim and hosting Eintracht Frankfurt. Hoffenheim, great home team. Imagine they're a quarter goal favorite at home, half a goal. So that's even bigger. I don't know how to explain that Hoffenheim just goes into a shell on the road. I imagine that's something that Holness in his game planning needs to fix, but they're in a home environment and they're likely going to play pretty well and probably will score at least once. So that makes me think that Frankfurt need to figure out how they're going to score and really keep up with Hoffenheim, who are able to score almost at will at home, they've shown. Frankfurt with a big victory at the end on a great header from Indika. They've been playing a little bit better, I think, lately, but Glasner, I think, is still a questionable offensive manager. The nice part is as a road dog where a draw wins a full bet. That's a number that is in a position where I think I'm interested in that number as where it is. I think at a quarter, I'd let this one pass, but I'm going to look a little bit deeper into Frankfurt. I just have questions about how Frankfurt score, and I think Hoffenheim will. So maybe that's one I should avoid. We'll see if I can do it. Dortmund then hosting Bayern in Der Klassiker. And I got to say that Bayern are a much better team. It's amazing that this league race is close, but I feel like that's good fortune for Dortmund to be at this point in the race because they don't deserve it, especially with how they played in Champions League. Different competition for sure, but I think they're playing much better against better teams in the Bundesliga, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think a lot of it's good fortune. Bayern's going to be a road favorite here. I feel like Dortmund have been very the opposite of competitive in these matchups, really in the last 3 seasons now. I imagine Bayern are probably at least a half a goal favorite on the road. That's what they are, according to Bet Online. All the juice on the Bayern side is likely climbing to 3/4 of a goal. And I got to say, from my expectations of this matchup, I think Bayern, who have certainly shown that they're not all there, that loss to Augsburg was a big surprise to me, and I can't really explain that one. But ultimately, I don't think Dortmund have a defense that can compete here, and Haaland must be back and playing in order for this number to be as low as it is. But even then, I just feel like the gap, the chasm in these two teams is massive. I'll be rooting for Dortmund because I want this Meisterschale title race to be close, but I think Bayern are going to take it pretty easily. Moving to Sunday, we have Stuttgart hosting Hertha Berlin. I imagine that Stuttgart are a slight favorite, quarter goal favorite right now. And I don't love Hertha at all, really. And they're certainly going to be scrapping and fighting, especially after giving up that late equalizer to Augsburg. But Stuttgart really are a bad team right now. They've been dealing with a ton of injuries. They're getting slowly but surely more healthy. But I feel like with Silas coming back on the wing, that does add a lot to them, but there's still nobody in the middle unless Saja Kalajic is back for this matchup that I trust to score goals. Hertha certainly have plenty of flaws. Their defense isn't great. Offense isn't great. But ultimately getting a quarter from one of the worst teams in the league so far that still is getting rated like a far better team than they are is one of those situations where I want to back an underdog, and who knows what the coronavirus crowd will be like. So I'm interested in Hertha getting a quarter. And then last but not least, it looks like Mönchengladbach hosting Freiburg. Freiburg, with a great start to the season, were sitting third before the last international break. Have had some really, really tough luck, or maybe lack of finishing has certainly been an issue, but really some goals that were really unexpected. So they've been cooling off quite a bit. Gladbach, I think, are playing better. Adi Hutter's teams really seem to show up halfway through the year and really come on in the second part of the Rückrunde, I believe it's called in Germany, which is the second half, if I am saying that correctly. Don't speak much German. Anyway, so I imagine that Gladbach will be a favorite at home, probably between quarter and a half. I'll say a half. That's what they are. Most of the juice on the Gladbach side. And as this climbs, the more and more interested I get in Freiburg. I feel like they have been playing much better than the recent results. And I do think that will shake their confidence quite a bit. But still the same sort of theme here is I really like the road underdogs, with crowds being very questionable for this weekend's matchups. And that will get me through the Bundesliga. So then we'll move to Ligue 1, which I believe I did do lines for last night. Marseille is a 1-goal favorite on Saturday at home to Brest. Brest have been playing really well. Very surprised to see the number this big. All the juice currently on the Brest side right now, but I don't want to lose that +1. And it's very likely, even on with a thinner roster on a quick turnaround, that's an issue for sure. The fixture list, they all played midweek. But I got to say, Marseille's offense has been pretty quiet for a while now. And so I'm interested against a Brest team that's playing well, winning matches. Got a really fortunate foul that turned into a handball on the other team for a penalty that won them the match against Saint Etienne, which is brutal for me as a Saint Etienne backer. But ultimately, credit them for keeping a clean sheet. And I don't think that's out of the question against Marseille, because they're going to sit back, defend. And I feel like Marseille getting more than a goal is very unlikely, and they need that at least to cover. Lille then hosting Troyes. Lille goal and a quarter favorite. It's a big number for Lille, but they had a pretty good win, going ahead 2-0 right before halftime on Rennes, who were playing really well, and on the road, which is a surprise to me. Troyes, I think, with a good win in midweek, I think gets them their allotted or their quota, their point quota for the quick turnaround for the 3 matches in 7 days or whatever. I don't know that Lille's offense is really trustworthy enough to hang at this type of number, and all the juice on the Troyes side, some of this falls to +1. But I think at a 1.25, I'll be looking at Troyes a little bit closer, though I'm not really a huge fan of who they are and feel like they're going to be fighting relegation. Lens then hosting PSG, getting a full goal right now with all the juice on Lens. I'd be surprised if PSG closed below a goal, because they're so popular and everyone wants to bet them, especially day of the match. But this line is pretty strong in the Lens camp, and respects them quite a bit, I got to say. I think Lens are going to play on the front foot, though, and that does invite a lot of PSG pressure and gives a lot of space to PSG, which I don't necessarily like. But their manager, it's hard to really speak out against them, as they've been playing really well. And this is probably, even at home, seems like a match that they're not expecting to get a lot out of. And I do think they did win this match last season, if I remember correctly, or at least got a point from it. Moving to Sunday, Saint Etienne hosting Rennes, getting half of a goal at home with all the juice on the Rennes side on the road. Maybe this climbs to 3/4 of a goal, and that does make me more interested in Saint Etienne. But ultimately, I think Rennes have been playing really well, and I'm not really as worried about the setback in midweek against Lille, because when you fall 1 behind and then you get a second goal right before half, that kind of stuns you. They did fight back to a 2-1 loss, and maybe I'm giving them too much credit for a loss at home against a team that they're better than or have been better than this season. I'm just not sure that they're a team I want to go against, because they're a clear unit that are really tough to play against. Monaco hosting Metz, giving a goal and a quarter. Big number for Monaco to lay. They had a good performance midweek and certainly have a lot more legs and depth in them, because they were built to be a Champions League squad that fell down to the Europa League. Metz, on the other hand, are playing better, but ultimately are a relegation candidate. They were bottom of the league. I'm not sure if they're still there, because they've been playing and getting some points lately, but they're a team that have been selling their best players for years now. And I'm not sure that they're even against a team that struggles to score like Monaco. I feel like the legs advantage is a big deal, with fatigue playing a part with 3 matches in a week. Lorient hosting Nantes, currently a pick'em at home. Lorient have been playing terribly, losing an uncompetitive match, giving up an early goal, surrendering an early goal against Troyes. Big problem. I think Nantes, though, as a road favorite, seems a little bit extreme to me, but I'm not sure that I want to catch a falling knife with Lorient's performances as bad as they've been for months now. Though at a quarter, that certainly would be the way I would lean. Montpellier is a quarter goal favorite at home to Clermont Foot. likely climbing to a half of a goal with all the juice on Montpellier. Clermont with finally a draw after losing 5 matches consecutively, I believe, if not more than that. Google caps it at 5 in their recent matches. At least I think it was 5 in a row. Montpellier, though, hadn't been playing great, got off to a really good start and got a big win in the midweek. I think that they're a team I want to back, and they have an offense despite selling their 2 best attackers in the end of the transfer window. I think Clermont Foot are going to try to play on the front foot, pun intended. And I think that that's a problem against Montpellier, who are going to be able to score. And I just don't know that Clermont can keep up in a game, especially that's up and down. Reims then hosting Angers, giving a quarter of a goal with all the juice on the Angers side. Maybe this falls to pick them, which would make it very unlikely I do anything with. And even at a quarter, not sure that there's enough there for me on Angers, as I think Reims are a good team. Had a big win against Lyon midweek, went ahead, gave up an equalizer. It looked like they were teeter-tottering and probably would have given up a late goal, because that seems to be how my bets go. But Reims was a big winner late in the match. And I got to say that they're a team I continue to want to back, and they continue to get disrespected. I mean, if this falls to pick them, that's way too short. It makes me almost want to think about backing Reims, because the problem is I just don't know that I want to ever back them as a favorite, because I think they're still a defensive side that has some offense. And I'm not sure how reliable their goal scoring is. Nice hosting Strasbourg, giving half of a goal. Strasbourg have been killing me a little bit, I got to say. They've been scoring a lot more goals than expected. Their defense kills me when I back them, because they give up. Jiku is a walking orange card, basically, each matchup, looking like he's about to get kicked off the field, ejected. I think half of a goal on Nice at home after a 0-0 with PSG midweek. They fought really hard. Definitely had more and plenty of chances to win that match, and I thought probably should have if they could actually head the ball not at the keeper. But Strasbourg, their offense has been good. I think as this climbs to 3/4 and higher, that's of interest to me, with a little bit of a push with a +1 coming in for half your bet at +3/4. That's the side I'm looking at. But ultimately, at a half a goal, I think that's low enough or cheap enough that I don't think I want to back Strasbourg requiring a draw. But ultimately, I think that Strasbourg can go to Nice and get a draw. It's just the Galtier. I think he's better in a defensive situation. I think offensively and trying to overwhelm the opponent is a little bit more difficult for him. But as an underdog, Nice are always going to be on my short list to make my card. And last but not least, Bordeaux hosting Lyon, getting 3/4 of a goal at home. Lyon, they're tough loss midweek. Certainly will be angry. Bordeaux just shipping goals. I mean, giving up 5 to Strasbourg was pretty incredible. But they got 2. That's, I think, a good sign for the Bordeaux offense. But who knows about the care level of Strasbourg when they're putting up so many goals that they just want to get on the front foot and score more. I think this is a tough situation. Bordeaux, their defense is really showing to be an issue, based on their club not being able to afford players and barely even paying wages, selling all their talent. I don't think that's a good situation against a Lyon team that are built to score goals. So that will, I think, do it for me on this episode. Made it 42 minutes, the long one. Went through as much as I could, especially with midweek. I am the real _G Warner. Hopefully I can remove the bad beats live from the bottom of this next week, as I would like to make it through a weekend without any gunshot wounds at the end, or assassination attempts, as I'm thinking about calling them. Anyway, thanks for joining. Any questions, hit me on Twitter, the real _G Warner. Should have plenty of college basketball this weekend as well. Thanks for watching. Talk to you guys soon.